At the beginning of the 21st century, the world knew of two distinct Chinese republics. The first, the People's Republic of China, was proclaimed in mainland China in October 1949 after a series of internal and external conflicts. The second, the Republic of China, is located on the island of Taiwan, a direct result of the Chinese Civil War that divided the nation after World War II. Although the Republic of China was the legitimate government for several decades, over time, the communist government of Mao Zedong consolidated its authority on the mainland, creating a new political order. But how did this division come about? To understand the existence of these two Chinas, we need to go back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when China was facing a series of internal and external crises. Ruled by the Qing monarchy for centuries, China began to show signs of weakness when it suffered humiliating defeats at the hands of foreign powers, such as the Opium Wars and the First Sino-Japanese War. These events not only cost China important territories, but also resulted in the signing of unequal treaties in which the victorious countries imposed commercial and territorial advantages to the detriment of the Chinese. The Chinese people and intellectual elite began to question the legitimacy and effectiveness of the monarchy, which seemed incapable of protecting the country's interests. The defeats were not only military, but also ideological. Reformist and revolutionary movements began to emerge, demanding not only the modernization of China, but also the end of the Qing monarchy. The population, especially intellectuals, young military personnel, and those who had contact with Western ideas, sought alternatives to transform the country. In this context, the figure of Sun Yat-sen emerged, one of the most influential leaders in the struggle for the creation of a republican China. For centuries, China was ruled by the Qing Dynasty, a monarchy that maintained its power based on a rigid hierarchical order and traditional customs. However, over time, this structure began to show signs of fragility, mainly due to increasing pressure from foreign powers. China lost several wars against the West, such as the Opium Wars in the 19th century, which resulted in a significant weakening of the monarchy's power. The signing of unequal treaties with European nations and Japan turned the country into a stage for economic and territorial exploitation by foreign powers. Internally, the situation was also tense. The concentration of land in the hands of a few landowners, many of whom were aristocrats linked to the monarchy, generated enormous dissatisfaction among the peasants who lived in extreme poverty. China, during the Qing period, had characteristics very similar to European feudalism. Peasants were forced to work on the lands of their lords, often without pay, in conditions that bordered on servitude. This system was inefficient. In addition to generating social injustices and worsening hunger in the country, which constantly faced food shortages. Amid this crisis, revolutionary movements emerged that sought to overthrow the Qing monarchy and establish a republic in China. These movements were mostly composed of urban intellectuals, young military men, and Chinese who had studied abroad, especially in the West. They were convinced that the only way to modernize China and put an end to the humiliations imposed by foreign powers was to abolish the monarchy and establish a centralized republican government based on democratic principles and focused on the well-being of the people. One of the most prominent leaders of this movement was Sun Yat-sen, the son of a tailor who had studied at an English school in Hawaii and later studied medicine in Hong Kong. During his studies, Sun began to engage in revolutionary activities, forming his first study group called the Four Bandits. In 1905, Sun Yat-sen led the creation of a revolutionary movement called the Tongmenghui, which was founded underground in Tokyo, Japan. This group brought together diverse ideological factions, from anarchists to conservatives, all united by the desire to overthrow the Qing monarchy and establish a republic in China. The culmination of these revolutions came on October 10, 1911, when Chinese army troops loyal to the revolutionaries mutinied, sparking a widespread uprising. The revolutionary movement grew rapidly, and the Qing monarchy lost control of the country within months. A national assembly was formed and proclaimed the Republic of China, with Sun Yat-sen as its first president. The capital was established in Nanjing, and the new government sought to end the long era of monarchy in China. However, to ensure stability and avoid further conflict, Sun Yat-sen decided to step down in favor of Yuan Shikai, the last prime minister of the Qing monarchy and leader of one of China's most powerful armies. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor of China, then only 6 years old, officially abdicated the throne, marking the end of the Qing Dynasty and the Chinese monarchy. The Republic of China was officially established, with Beijing as its capital and a new national flag of 5 colors representing the different peoples of China. Although the Revolution of 1911 was successful in overthrowing the monarchy and establishing a republic, China continued to be plagued by internal conflicts. Yuan Shikai, who took control of the republic after Sun Yat-sen's resignation, attempted to restore the monarchy, proclaiming himself emperor in 1915. However, his attempt failed, and he was forced to abdicate in 1916 after facing strong opposition. From that point on, China plunged into a period of instability known as the era of warlordism, which lasted from 1916 until 1928. During this period, the country was divided between regional military factions, each commanded by a local warlord. These leaders had private armies and fought each other for control of territory. The lack of a strong central government prevented China from achieving political stability or economic growth, which further exacerbated the country's already plaguing problems of poverty and inequality. Meanwhile, Sun Yat-sen attempted to consolidate the Republican movement by founding the Kuomintang, Chinese Nationalist Party, in 1921. Amidst this chaos, revolutionary ideals began to spread. Inspired by the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1921, Chinese communist activists founded the Communist Party of China, CPC, which was quickly integrated into Sun Yat-sen's Kuomintang. At the time, the Kuomintang brought together different ideological factions, all of whom shared the common goal of unifying China and creating a strong national government. What began as a tense alliance between communists and nationalists soon devolved into open conflict. After Sun Yat-sen's death in 1925, the leadership of the Kuomintang was assumed by Chiang Kai-shek, who adopted a more authoritarian and conservative stance. His vision of a strong central government brought him closer to European fascist movements, and he began to suppress the communists. This conflict marked the beginning of the Chinese Civil War, with the communists, led by Mao Zedong, opposing Chiang's nationalist government. Between 1945 and 1949, the Chinese Civil War intensified again. The communists, led by Mao Zedong, received significant support from the Soviet Union, which supplied arms and equipment captured from the Japanese in Manchuria. Meanwhile, the nationalists, supported by the United States, lost popular support due to corruption and runaway inflation in the areas under their control. The communists' agrarian policies, which redistributed land to the peasants, secured massive support from the rural population, who formed the majority of the population. Mao Zedong waged an effective guerrilla war, encircling and defeating the nationalist troops. On October 1, 1949, Mao proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China in Beijing, marking the victory of the communists on the mainland. Chiang Kai-shek and his nationalist followers retreated to the island of Taiwan, where they established a provisional government, still under the name of the Republic of. After the communist victory in 1949, China was officially divided into two political entities: the People's Republic of China, PRC, on the mainland, led by Mao Zedong, and the Republic of China on Taiwan, ruled by the nationalists. Over the following decades, this division remained. The communist government of the PRC established itself as the sole legitimate government of China in the eyes of many countries, especially after it was admitted to the United Nations, UN, in 1971, replacing Taiwan. Taiwan, for its part, remained a separate political entity, but never renounced its claim to be the true government of China. To this day, this situation generates tensions between the two sides. The two China's issue remains one of the greatest geopolitical impasses in the modern world.